Welcome back to the second hour of Hereticus and Achelon. You've just woken up from what might be considered a bad dream.
Oh yes.
Yes, you basically witnessed in this dream the planet Scintilla being ripped apart by these shapes that have been your mission for the last many months. Many years, maybe even, not many years, but for a long time now.
Yeah.
So, what up?
As you say, he wakes up drenched in sweat. It's a good thing he wasn't holding anything with his left hand, or else he might have ended up actually warping something out of shape. But he has to go and find Sister Francesca immediately. She's the one in charge of the group, and he trusts her. So.
Cool.
Well,
I'm going to assume that he can find her somewhere.
Yeah, she's not hiding.
I would have words with you, Francesca.
By all means. I'm listening.
I've seen the destruction of the planet of Scintilla. A vision came to me. These artifacts, whatever they are, they're gathered together on this planet. They travelled about it at some great speed and caused a breach in the warp underneath the surface of the planet that tears it apart. Leaves only destruction in its wake. And again, I saw that black armoured skeleton in the visions. Every single time I've had these, he has been there.
Right. We have a clear duty at this time. First is to inform the Ordo Malleus of what is going on. This is no longer a matter of heresy, this is a matter of healing. Nothing merely heretical could accomplish what you just described. We do fortunately know that there is a kill team in the vicinity of the Death Watch. And we do need to get in contact with them. Urgently.
Well, we've had authority over the crew of the ship in that regard. I imagine getting in contact with them should be.
We need to go right now to the Astropathic Choir and get in touch with that kill team. I have long harbored deep suspicions about what it is we're doing, but follow orders like we all do, because we were obeying a lawfully given command by a lawfully appointed superior. However, what we have seen and learned and what you have described so far leads me to believe that following such orders from this point onwards would lead to the destruction of Scintilla. I am not asking you to follow me into this. I'm not asking the other. I'm doing this myself. My first duty is always going to be to the God. And I cannot, and I will not, allow one of his worlds to be destroyed through negligence. That is not serving God Emperor.
No.
You should know before you follow me into this that it will kill us. Even if we succeed, we will die.
I have long accepted that I was going to die the moment I was chosen for this duty and was put upon the ship taken to Scintilla in the first place.
Yes. Well, that was always an option and always a possibility. I think we can all agree on that. But it is a certainty if we do this. Because even if we survive in order to stall this disaster and get Death Watch involved in the process, even if we are successful in that. We would not be allowed to live after having gone against Blizzard orders.
No.
We would be dishonored and killed. I will rather die untainted and in the service of the God Emperor than I would in any way facilitate what you have described.
Let's get to it then. In the Emperor's name.
In the Emperor's name. And I think they get up and they hurry to the Astropathic Choir.
Okay, cool. Well, you know where they are. At this point, you have a good idea of most of this Imperial cruiser. There are, even with your apparent high rank within this ship, there are still areas of the ship where you do not have access.
Of course.
The Astropathic Choir is not one of them. You can absolutely send a message via the choir.
Yeah. That is sent to... We did have the name of that watch sergeant, but it's been a while since we interacted with him, so I can't actually remember it out of character, but I can assure you that it's not something Francesca would forget.
No. If I remember correctly, because I've forgotten as well, it was Watch Sergeant Enoch.
That's true. It was, yes. Well, in that case, she will send out a message to Watch Sergeant Enoch, imploring him to order the cruiser to remain in orbit and not put anyone ashore on the planet until they arrive themselves, and that it is a matter of potential planetary destruction. He has enough, a Death Watch and Ordo Malleus sergeant should have enough power to do that. That's my hope, anyway.
So, when you describe what it is you want to have done, the wasted road figure you're interacting with looks at you in surprise and says, "But, my lord, the Death Watch are here on the ship.
We have not known of this. Excellent. Where?
On deck 32."
Is this where we are not allowed?
Yes, that is one of the decks where you do not have access.
In that case, she says and looks at the telepath, we do not have access to that place. Then I don't need this sent into space. I just need you to contact Watch Sergeant Enoch from here and let him know that it is a matter of the absolute utmost urgency that we see him.
I shall deliver the message. And he basically does that.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay, what then? What are you going to do until you get a reply?
Until we get a reply, Francesca is going to do very little of anything, because whatever happens next is dependent on the answer that Watch Sergeant Enoch gives her.
What do we do with Medea and Prue? Do we inform them?
I would rather they did not know until we've spoken to the Watch Sergeant. At least that way they are innocent in what we are about to do. If the Watch Sergeant replies in positive, which I hope he does, we do include them immediately. This is serious, Akalon. There has never been a situation where one of my order fallen to the great enemy. I don't intend on being the first. We have, if anything, been taught that yes, we should follow orders, but we should also use our own good judgment. That is what we're doing.
Yes. I hope so.
All right.
So, yeah.
I'll
We're waiting.
I'll type in a whisper, and then we'll see what the watch sergeant replies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's figure out what he replies before I send the whisper.
Okay.
So Medea, or rather Sister Francesca, at some point, not long after you sent the message, you get a visitor.
Yes.
A hulking, robed figure, dressed in dark green robes, enters your quarters. No, he doesn't wear armor.
He's out of armor.
He's
oh my
out of
goodness.
armor.
Yes.
And he basically enters your quarters after, of course,
of course.
the requisite courtesies.
Yes.
And he looks at you for a moment before he says in his deep, uberhuman voice, so, I hear you wished to get in touch with me.
Yes, because I believe the Order Hereticus is about to overstep its bounds very, very dangerous, and veer into territory that rightly belongs under the Order Mali.
Indeed.
And she takes out that bolter casing, the blessed bolter casing that she's been keeping these things in. And in this thing, in here, is contained an item of tremendous evil. Of enough evil that when it is combined with other items of its kind, which have been collected by an acolyte under Inquisitor Dex, that it can destroy the planet. It has been seen very, very clearly in multiple visions experienced by Achelon. This sequence of events leading up to and finally concluding with the absolute destruction of Scintilla. There's no heresy that could accomplish this without demonic aid.
Right. So far, so good. So, also, is Achelon present during this, or is he not present?
Well, he's currently BRB.
Oh, then he. Let's just say he's not present then, and he can correct me later.
I think actually Francesca would like for him to be there.
Okay, cool. Well, then he is, unless, of course, Achelon objects, but I don't.
Yeah, of course.
So, Chris.
Yes.
So, the Watch Sergeant Enoch is now having a conversation with Sister Francesca in her quarters, and
yes.
Sister Francesca, or Joan, has made it clear that she would like for Achelon to be there as well. Not that this meeting has been set up or anything, but maybe he was there when the Watch Sergeant paid them a visit.
Yeah, I can go with that.
So he looks at Sister Francesca and says, I'm not certain what it is you want from me.
We cannot allow these items to fall into the hands of those who would use them for evil. And we cannot even allow them to be gathered in one place. I cannot think of anyone I would trust more than the Death Watch to guard such objects. I am committing an act in asking this of you, which will result in my execution. But this is a matter of saving an Imperial planet and of doing the God Emperor's work. This item cannot reach Scintilla.
The other of its kind are already present.
Several of them. One has been destroyed, and I have 2 more. This and one other.
He thinks about what you've said, and he looks at Akalon and says, "Do you agree with this assessment? Is it folly for us to gather all of these shapes, or whatever they are, in one single place?"
We can't hear you if you're speaking.
No, I'm just
Okay.
dramatic pause. I do. I've prayed and I have warded against visions given by the enemy and believed strongly that not simply to take what I see in my mind at face value, but all of what I have seen has been specific, and it has been a warning. I'm convinced that what I've seen, what has led to this course, is not the work of the enemy, but it is the work of the God Emperor, and he would see that the heart of the Calixtus sector is not lost to chaos.
The Calixtus conclave is ruled by a senior member of Ordo Malleus. Did you know this?
I had heard something of the sort.
Lord Inquisitor Caden is the highest ranking member of Ordo Malleus in this sector. I highly suggest that you have a word with the Lord Inquisitor.
It would be my honor.
I also suggest that you take it through the proper channels, because if you do not, then it is very likely to be the end of you, as you yourself mentioned.
Absolutely.
If the Lord Inquisitor Caden deems it necessary to protect these things elsewhere, then a watch fortress or even a watch station would be a good place to keep them safe. But he is the person you need to speak with.
Indeed.
Because if we do not trust the highest ranking members of Ordo Malleus, then who can we trust?
Then we can trust no one.
Indeed.
However, I can already say that the normal proper channels for for me and for Akelon and for the remaining 2 members of our group would be to go through the very person whom I suspect of ill intent. And at this point, Francesca goes on to explain the current situation with Inquisitor Dex being, incapacitated with one of these items lodged in her skull and communicating allegedly through the psychic wire. However, we have no way of knowing if that is utter bollocks. But she doesn't use that word, but basically that's the intent. That's what she's implying, or if it is in fact the Inquisitor speaking. And even if it is the Inquisitor speaking, we do not know if this item lodged in her skull has somehow influenced her mind. What we do know is that we have numerous, very, very concrete, coherent, and what do you call it? And linear progression of visions from an accomplished psyker. And consequently, if we need to go through the proper channels, then I most respectfully request that as a member of Ordo Malleus, that the Watch Sergeant forwards the request for this meeting. And I do let him know, as I do that, I do tell him that I am prepared to die for this. It is my full and absolute conviction that this is the right thing to do.
You are that certain?
I am that certain. I have doomed 5 million people to death because one of these items was found in the sector of the hive where they lived. 5 million souls. I should like to not condemn a further 10 billion.
I shall put forth the request for a meeting. And with that, he basically turns around because
yes,
then that's what he needs to do.
Yes. At this point, Francesca sits down and she is ashen-faced. And then she says to Accolon, "Could you bring the others?"
Of course. And he, without any other words, he gets up and goes to see if he can retrieve them.
I take it that's easy enough for him to do.
Sure.
Never. I'm hiding in all the clothes racks.
Of course you are.
Didn't realise that this ship needed that many clothes racks. But okay.
Of course. Nah, she's easy enough to find.
Perhaps they're
Especially if
even
you know
hanging
her
out
well
together.
enough.
Sorry, say again?
Perhaps something, Rasmus?
Oh, I wasn't sure if you wanted me or IAG to repeat ourselves. Perhaps they're even hanging out together.
Nope.
Okay.
It's just mean.
Only if she's insisting.
Nah, not yet then.
Okay, so yes, we go and get them, and do we all crowd into the same set of quarters?
Yes, into Francesca's quarters.
Yes.
Where they, when they arrive, they see her sitting, looking like pale as a ghost. She looks almost physically ill.
She probably is.
Are you quite all right?
I'm not sure I am, but it's not a physical malady. However, I feel I must inform you of actions that Accolon and I have undertaken out of necessity. And I'm going to give you the option of whether to walk away or stay with us to see this through. You did not know what was done, so you are innocent of any involvement.
Up until now.
There are plenty of witnesses to that effect. Yes, but now the action has been undertaken. When we got close to the planet, Accolon had another vision. McBeacon, Prudentia, you have not been with us that long, but this is not a new thing. Accolon has experienced numerous visions, and they have all been connected, and they have all been increasingly specific that these geometric objects that we have been collecting in various places and bringing back to the tricorn, that they have been objects of raw evil. They have in fact been objects in some way connected to the denizens of the warp and to chaos. And she actually, she makes a warding symbol in front of herself, like, she doesn't, do the sign of the cross, but a similar, she does the inquisitorial eye in front of herself when she says the word chaos. And as we arrived here, he had a final vision that if these items are brought to the surface of the planet, it will lead to Scintilla's destruction. Every man, woman, and child on Scintilla would die, and the Empire would lose the heart of the Calixid sector.
I see.
Consequently, I, on my own initiative, decided to contact the Ordo Malleus, who deal with demonic enemies of the Imperium. This is in the shape of the kill team of Adeptus Astartes that we have already had dealings with, including the dropship landing of the tank. We had met with them before, and it turns out that they were on board this ship in the areas that we have not been allowed into.
I see.
I have spoken to Watch Sergeant Enoch, their commander, this kill team, and he has agreed to put forth a request for us to see the head of the Scintillan conclave of the Inquisition, who is a very high-ranking member indeed of the Ordo Malleus. In doing this, I am disobeying a direct order to bring these items back. Trina, our fellow acolyte, and to Inquisitor Dex. But I no longer feel I have any choice but to do what I have done. I can only hope that you will support me in this decision. If you cannot, then no blame can be attached to you, as I have already undertaken these actions before you arrived.
Prue looks thoughtful, as much as her augmented face can look thoughtful.
Well, her body language obviously can.
Yes. I have questions I would like to have
Please.
answered first.
Please ask.
Is it at all possible to verify these visions of Akalans in any way?
We have already found references to many of the things he has seen in ancient text in the library in the Tricorn. This is a known phenomenon. But the texts were, in fact, incomplete. They do, however, refer to an exceptionally dangerous situation. And I believe now that Kalon has had this most recent vision, that we have the final piece of this prophecy.
And can you verify that these visions are not from our enemies?
There is no way to ever verify something like that.
I see. Perhaps then it would be good to ask ourselves, in case they are, what would our enemy gain from our acting this way?
They would gain that we do not put these things together on the planet. That is what they would gain.
Maybe they knew that this is the action we would take and therefore get ourselves killed.
To be perfectly honest, I think it would be difficult for them to foresee that a member of the Adeptus Sororitas would go against an explicit order.
Do you know what will happen to the objects once they are all together? Will they be sealed away or destroyed?
No mention has been made of that. Every item we have brought back has been taken off our hands, but we do know that one of these items is lodged in the skull of Inquisitor Dex. We also know from having seen what has happened to others who have had this happen, that it is absolutely destructive to the person who is in physical contact with these things.
Yes, I
Inquisitor
recall.
Dex is a very strong person, admittedly, but one must still be very wary.
And Inquisitor Dex is up and about?
No, she's not. She has been bedridden since the very first of these objects, as I mentioned, got lodged in her skull.
I distinctly remember her being up and walking around.
Is that the case, Heine? Because I can't remember that.
Not since she had her.
No,
accident.
since she was up and about before that happened.
Yes, she was.
But
When you
then
first met
after
her,
it
she was up
happened,
and
she
about,
was
yes.
placed on a bed, basically, and
Yes, I remember that we found, I think, either one or even two of these things, and then she was bedridden when the third was embedded in her head on a mission she went on.
yeah, that's how it
Something to
was.
that effect, yes.
Okay. I was just so sure that she was up and about after too.
Yes. As far as I recall, Trina was the one who said that we were to undertake the mission to find all of the objects, and it was only after the incident that Inquisitor Dex also said that we should do the same thing.
And quite frankly, she was quite vague about it. If I remember correctly, she was not exactly crystal clear in what she told us, as I recall, but I may be wrong.
She weren't. But then again, she was speaking to a choir.
Yeah. But
I see. And I assume that since she was not gotten rid of, that her mental state had been somehow verified as being, well, untainted.
we can't verify that. Because the only thing we have to go on is the word of the person who has sent us to collect all these items. That is all we know. We do not know the extent of the damage done to Inquisitor Dex or to her mind.
Was
Is
she not
there
examined?
Yes, but not by us.
By whom then?
By her own retinue.
A retinue that would have been present at this incident?
Almost certainly, yes. In fact, I would say with certainty, yes. And consequently, they could also have been tainted in the process.
And what of this acolyte? Who's giving you orders now?
Acolyte Trina.
Yes.
Yes. She has been very, very single-minded in pursuing these items. And every time we've come close to one of them, every single time, Akalon has had more foreboding and damaging visions, more visions of doom and destruction. And it has tried to attack him. This is important. The items have tried to influence his mind, and he has resisted them. They have also physically...
Medea is scratching her feet against the floor.
Yeah, Medea has also touched them, and just before we encountered you on Piety of Seth, When we found one of these items in at the Abbey of St. Helena's Mount, before it was destroyed, Medea had gotten her hands on one of these items, and she would not let me have it until I used my faith powers to cleanse her of the horrific influence that this thing exerted over her. So the ability of these items to influence the mind of those who come into contact with them is exceptionally strong. Even I can feel them when I use these abilities that are granted to me by the God Emperor. Even I can feel the pull through my faith.
Has this acolyte been in direct contact with the objects then?
Yeah, she's the one who's taken them when we've gotten them back after Dix.
Yes. She's the one who takes them off our hands.
She's the middleman. The
Yes.
lady.
I see. So you have...
And it should be said that she has grown increasingly belligerent.
I think she's always been like that, but okay.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have so far a case of someone who resisted the pull, she points to Akalon, and someone who could not, points to Medea, without
Yes.
influence. Could it not be then that...
Hey, they are very, 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 very convincing. They play on all the things you already think about the world and enhance it. Crosses her arms.
I would assume then that it was your training as a psyker that allowed you to resist Akalon.
I mean, yes, to a greater or lesser degree, and also the blessings of the Emperor, but often it comes down to a matter of personal force of will. That is how any psyker is able to survive and become...
Akalon is so accomplished at this point that his will is extremely strong. It has to be for him to control the warp the way he does.
Yes.
And what of Inquisitor Dex and Trina? Are they known for having strong wills?
Inquisitor
Dex.
Dex is a known psyker. She could have, but on the other hand, she has one of these items in constant touch with her forehead, possibly even in direct contact with her brain through her skull. They haven't been able to remove the item from her head without killing her.
Prue looks to Akalon. Were you in direct contact with the object?
Out of character. Was I ever? I don't think I was.
No, you've
I
never
don't
actually
think you
touched. You've never actually touched one of them.
That's the thing, is that any instance where I've been called upon to... If I had been called upon to lift it, I would have wrapped it in something. But yeah, anytime I've had visions, it's only been... Anytime I've had visions, it has been in close proximity to one, but never...
You
in
were
contact.
standing literally right next to one, down in when we found the one in the middle hive, down in
Yes.
that shaft that we were down in.
Yes.
You were literally standing next to the woman who was sitting in the chair, screaming without sound.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. I got 20 corruption points from that place.
Yep.
But yes, Ackle obviously, yes, he says he's never been in direct contact, but he has been in close proximity to one. That's
I
about
see.
it.
But this acolyte and the Inquisitor both have. As did you, right, Medea?
Huh?
You were also in direct contact with this object.
Yeah, I picked it up.
That does give at least something for a theory that they can perhaps be resisted afar, but are much stronger when in direct contact.
Yes.
Probably. We had a very long conversation.
We should also consider the fact that two of these items, merely two of them, were strong enough to create the monstrosity that we found in the ruins of the spaceport in Port Hadley.
The one I blew up?
The one you blew up and the other one which we brought with us.
Ah, right.
You said something
So-
that interests me, Medea.
Mhm.
You said you had a conversation with the
Yes.
object. That would imply that it has a mind of its own,
Oh, it did. It wanted me to gather it.
which means they could have sent Akolon visions every time he got close through some ploy of their own, does it not?
But then,
But all the more reason to not gather them in one place if that is what they are telling people to do. That in itself should be the best reason possible for not gathering them in one.
Well, it was very intent on me picking it up.
It sounds
Okay.
like it wants to have a host.
Of course. How
Or
would it else get
because-
around?
Or, this is merely a theory, I cannot be certain as I've not actually seen these items together and I'm grateful for it. But they are all geometric shapes of some kind. There is the possibility that together they form a greater whole.
So they're
Ah.
puzzle pieces.
Exactly. That is a possibility, but we cannot know for a fact. But if
So-
that is the case, then imagine how much stronger it would be if they are in close proximity to one another.
it is the case in all the visions I've seen that have involved multiple of them. It's never been that they've been combined into one thing. It's always been that
Oh,
they've
right.
been in close proximity in circles or in
Yes.
specific
Medea,
patterns.
Medea gets the same expression she got right before she started playing Pac-Man. And looks at the Akalon.
Mm-hmm.
Did the visions get worse and worse the more we found? Did it grow? Like, this was this, and this is the amount of things we found, and then it got worse as we got more.
I would say, Akalon, if I may venture, that yes, seeing as the final one you just had showed the destruction of Scintilla.
Well, I remember the first couple of ones you talked about. There were only one or two, and that was after we found the first couple. And it was horrible, but there were only one or two present.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's grown worse. The more we found, the worse it got.
I mean, there is also... That is somewhat true, although I have seen images that have involved all of them from early on. Talk of great towers and other things, but it's always been... It's always... Be quiet, dog. I'm trying to roleplay over here. Anyway, it's always... Visions have mostly always been centered on this armored skeleton. Yeah, sorry, I've got a noisy dog.
No worries. No
Yes,
worries.
yes.
Okay, I think that washed it up. Yes, this black armored skeleton ever since the first, and that's crucial. The first of these visions I had, well, it might have been caused by one of these objects, but it was before I even received the news that I was to be taken to Scintilla to be made an acolyte. It was while I was on the party of Seth, back when it was still as I remember it, and there was a vision of the Emperor on the Golden Throne being enveloped by great blackness, and then there was this figure there as well.
The very planet where we just found 3 or
Exactly.
2.
So they might have been able to have some. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know.
There were 3. One was destroyed. We still have 2.
Okay, how many was it originally that we from the vision? That there was, and the reference and the ancient text talked about there being a certain number that
Wasn't it 12? No, I'm not sure.
10, I think.
10, okay.
10. Okay.
How many have we already found? There were 3 on Sith. 2 of them survived.
Yep.
We found what? How many on Scintilla?
We found 1 in the skull of the woman under the down in the shaft, and there is 1 that is lodged in another skull, namely Inquisitor Dex's.
Yep.
And
5.
I believe that I believe they said that they had found 1 more.
So
Well,
6.
remember that you also found one in the church or the cathedral, but way back.
That's
then.
true.
That was the first one you found, and you also
When
found.
the chandelier of death fell.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's true.
And Tim.
So that's 7.
Tim and what's her face? Trina found one in the up in the spires in
So
one
we
of
had 8.
the mansions up there.
Yeah. We're at 8.
And we don't know what they've been doing the last year or 2
So
we've gone.
conceivably, they could have more.
They could have gotten the last couple.
We've been underway for a very long time. It took us an entire year to get to Piety of Seth.
It took less to get back because things are less.
Yes, but still several months.
It's probably taken us all in all 1.5 years or something like that.
I
If not
imagine.
more.
Yes.
I've actually just checked back through my notes, and there is something very important that we've, I think, forgotten, which Akelon is going to bring up as a matter of cemetery. The point is that this is the right call. The last time that there was even a hint that 10 of these things were together on one planet, they called down exterminatus upon it. Remember Heed, Francesca? That was included in the documents we read in the library back on Scintilla.
Emperor protects. Yes, you're right.
So,
Well,
yes.
that's
Right.
certainly
Those are not
good.
going back down there. She crosses her arms.
Either
I don't care what happens
Either
to
they
me.
will-
They're not
I-
going down there.
Exactly. Either they destroy the planet, or the Inquisition will destroy the planet for them. Either or, it will lead to the destruction of Scintilla, and it is the very heart of the entire sector. The whole sector could be lost. I am willing to risk my life if it prevents. My life means nothing compared to that.
I agree.
So what do we do?
We wait until Watch Sergeant Enoch returns to let us know if we have been granted an audience.
Hey, on the upside, Prue, you might get to look at my brain early.
How so?
If we get murdered, there's a
I
chance
imagine-
you get the brain.
I imagine I'm involved enough that I would also get murdered.
Not if you choose to leave now.
I'm still debating my decision.
Fear that we have made a choice and entered a situation where logic alone will not suffice in reaching a conclusion, Prue.
Yes, running the math on the destruction of a sector is a pointless endeavor.
I suppose so.
Do not worry about me. I'll let you know once I've reached a decision. But I will say, with the last piece of evidence you proposed, Akelon, it was quite convincing. I had 2 theories, namely one that these objects would like to be gathered for whatever reason, or that they would not like to be in the same place out of not wanting to be destroyed or sealed away. We have seen that they can be destroyed.
Yes.
But if the Inquisition has already called down exterminatus once, I can't help but wonder why an Inquisitor would not know this.
Not only that, but if Exterminatus was called down on a planet where 10 of the close gathered together, I think there is still one on the piety of death. I do not think they can be fully destroyed.
You think
What?
they can
I
reform?
didn't hear that.
I said I don't think they can be fully destroyed. There's still one on the piety of Seth, if that is the case, the one that you shot, Medea, which we took to be destroyed. The reason for this is Exterminatus involves a bombardment of the planet's surface so thorough that not a single blade of grass is allowed to survive. Everything down to the molecular level, all life, down to the smallest of tiny little particles of life, is eradicated. All you have left is a dead pile of rock floating in space.
Exactly.
And if that is not enough to destroy these items once and for all, then certainly a single bolter shell cannot do it either.
Or there's simply more of them, and they come in sets of 10.
That's also a possibility. Even
Well, the form of what I shot ceased to be, so if it reforms later, then of course.
that's
We didn't hang around to see that.
No. I don't think that would actually be something. I'm pretty sure that if it would have reformed in the same place, we would have been informed of it on the journey back. I think we would have heard something from the piety of Seth about Port Hadley being engulfed in darkness again. Just my thought. But in any case, it is absolutely true, as Akalon says. We did find this information that the last time they got close to collecting all 10 in the same place, and I say they without knowing specifically who they were, but the last time it was attempted, the planet was obliterated.
I have made my decision. I think caution is to be had when so many lives and so much material is at risk. So I shall join your cause, for better or worse.
Thank you.
Okay. So
In that case, there is not much we can do except wait for Watch Sergeant Enoch to return.
indeed. And return he
I
does.
think-
Oh, sorry. Rasmus, I didn't mean to.
No, don't worry. I think Prue will spend the time asking Medea about the conversations she had with the objects to gain a better understanding of it.
Okay.
She won't be telling much.
I won't stop Prue from asking, though.
Secrets, yes.
I think it ends up being... Stop asking me.
Why?
Because it's weird.
But it is important information.
Yeah, it's hard to know when you think of something being an important information and just something that's nice to know.
Well, in that case, I consider this important information.
Alright? I've told you what I know.
Prue observes her for a while and then says, I am not certain I believe you.
We had a conversation. It tried to turn me against Francesca. End of story.
How?
By telling me she's going down the wrong path,
What path would that be?
murdering people into oblivion.
I see. Does Prue know about the whole condemning a sector thing?
She just mentioned it. So.
Oh, right. I assume this refers to what Sister Francesca mentioned earlier.
That too.
That
Mostly
too.
about the bombs you threw into the room.
Prue looks back and forth between the two. Bomb?
Yes, when we were at the convent of of St. Helena's Mount, we found Druchi located there at Dark Eldar, Xenos,
Hmm.
and we fought them. This is where we lost one of our number. They were exceptionally swift, incredibly dangerous. We were overmatched. There's no question that they were better than us in terms of sheer fighting ability. Obviously, they did not have the faith in the God Emperor to sustain them, and I believe fully that that's what saw us through in the end. But we did get into the cathedral itself, although it had been heavily booby-trapped. We got into the cathedral itself, and down underneath it towards the crypts where we expected the geometric item that we were there to find would be located, and we were correct, except somebody had actually stolen the crypt itself. The entire structure was gone. There was a huge hole, but the geometric item was still floating in the air in the middle of this empty space. But before we even got that far, we found another. Wasn't it 6, Heine? I believe.
Sorry.
Weren't there 6 Dark Eldar that we were, and 4 Sisters of Battle?
I don't remember the exact number of the Sisters of Battle.
No, but it's thereabout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we found 6 Dark Eldar torturing a number of my sisters, and we were in very confined space. We were underground and in a confined space against exceptionally dangerous hand-to-hand combatants, and we were in close proximity, and I made the call that my sister should not suffer the indignity of being tortured by Xenos. And since I could not be absolutely certain that we would conquer 6 of them in open combat, I decided to throw my entire grenade belt into the room. It obliterated the enemy, and it mercifully killed my sisters instantly as well.
I see.
It was the right call to make, and it was even borne out later when momentarily got in contact with the abbess who was located within the cathedral itself, and she gave us a direct order to detonate the booby traps to destroy the entire convent. And we did.
I see. I take it then, Medea, that this was what the object told you was the wrong path.
Of course. I did not want to die.
These feelings, were they already present in you?
She just eyes Prue. Will you stop it now?
I'm simply trying to figure out how the object manipulates those in touch with him.
Didn't I already tell you that it plays on thoughts you already have and then enhances everything? At least it tries to manipulate you. Every little doubt you have, it's gonna play it out against you. It's going to sound very, very, very convincing.
I see.
I think, very, very simply, I think that these items consider me a prime enemy, as they have not been able to influence me. My faith has protected me from them. And
Simply because of how I was born.
yes.
I have no further questions for the moment.
All right. Well, then we should wait until Sergeant Enoch returns.
So, Sergeant Enoch does indeed return a couple of hours later. So you may be spending a bit of time looking at each other.
I think praying is a thing.
Yeah, definitely for you guys. He does return eventually, and before he even enters the Francesca's quarters or Nox or whatever, you can hear him. You can hear that he's wearing power armor.
Yes.
And there is a knock.
Yes.
You're somewhat concerned that he might actually tear the door off its hinges. That doesn't happen, of course.
I've got to say, with power armor as well, if he knocks, does that just hand goes through the door?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, no, she opens.
Oh, sorry. Let me put that back on its hinges.
And it is indeed the watch sergeant, and he has a somewhat grim look on his face.
Oh dear.
And he enters. It's just barely the doorway is just barely large enough for him to enter through it, but he does, and he looks it over you and says, "Your request has been accepted. As soon as we reach orbit, this cruiser shall remain in orbit for the duration of your meeting with the Lord Inquisitor. You will keep the thing here with us under our protection.
Yes, definitely.
And we will see what happens, what the Lord Inquisitor has to say about this."
We shall indeed.
With that, he nods and leaves the room again.
So we.
Sorry.
Aklon quietly says, "And so the madness begins."
And with that, I think we'll take our second and final break, and we'll be right back.